Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, listeners of Finding Voices Radio, on inviting from Beauty Events, we have met you today, David Icke. Very welcome to Holland.
Thank you very much. It's one of my favourite countries. First country I ever visited outside Britain, actually.
Okay.
A long time ago.
Is now your second time here?
It was the second time I've spoken here, yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, I actually spoke years and years ago at an event in Amsterdam, a long time ago, back in the 90s, but the second time I've come and done what I do now. But I've been to Holland and the Netherlands and Amsterdam many times.
It's before we started about your new book,
Yeah.
what I want to know is how you gonna get your information when you're talking about.
Well, it's an interesting question, because many years ago, in fact 20 years ago this year, I had a very amazing series of what you might call paranormal experiences. I've talked about it in my books, and I've talked about it, on the internet many times. But for a year, through 1989, I had the feeling when I was in a room alone that I wasn't alone. Like if I was in a hotel room like this, and I was the only one here, there was a feeling like there was someone else here, there was a presence. And at that time I was a television presenter for the BBC, I was a national spokesman for the British Green Party. But as the year unfolded, this presence got more tangible, more blatant. And eventually, long story short, I ended up going to see a psychic. On the pretext, although it was true, that she did hands-on healing and I had arthritis, would that help? But the foundation reason for me going was, would she pick up whatever I'm feeling around me? And this was in March 1990. And I went a couple of times and did the hands-on healing, and it was all very nice. But then the third time and the fourth time, she started going into psychic mode and telling me that I was going to go out on a world stage eventually and reveal great secrets. One man cannot change the world, but one man can communicate the message that can change the world, was one thing I remember came through. And that I would face enormous opposition, but they would always be there to protect me. And of course, part of me, the one that was the television presenter and national spokesman for the Green Party, was like, what? But another part of me, which I felt clearly, was, go with it, there's something in this, go with it. And what happened, coming round to the question of where my information comes from, what happened was that my life became this amazing series of synchronistic coincidences. And actually during that psychic mode that the lady was in, this was said, that sometimes they would put knowledge into my mind, and sometimes I would be led to knowledge. This is right at the start when I'm thinking, what knowledge? And from that moment, it's happened. That's been the sequence. So through the years, this synchronicity has led me to people, to documents, to books, to experiences of my own, which incredibly fall into a very clear pattern, where like a subject will come into my life for the first time, say reptilian entities, say the moon's not real, or a heavenly body as we perceive it, say a network of families are controlling world events. And then once that subject has been introduced into my life, suddenly there's an explosion of synchronistic events, experiences, books, documents. I come across people I see or meet that relate to that subject. And I've got used to it over the years, how it works. And I've learned when something is saying, look at this, this is the next step, look at this. And this is how I've built up the information, not from sitting in a darkened room, kind of contacting the ether, all that stuff, but through this synchronicity leading me to information in various forms, many in various forms, that are actually saying the same thing. And with the passage of what we call time, like I wrote a book in 1994 called "And the Truth Shall Set You Free," saying that this is where the world is going unless we do something about it. And that information was based on this synchronicity of information that I was picking up. And what, 15, 16 years later, that book is now on the daily news in things that are actually happening and being introduced. So once that starts to happen, you get more and more confident with the way that the information is coming to you. And nowadays it's just second nature to me.
Yeah, so you give your presentations, and you give a presentation of 8 hours on a day.
Right.
Yeah.
And the rest when I can get away with it.
Is it so a lot of information that you need 8 hours?
Well, what I am really is a dot connector, because you can look at individual dots, like the way the banking system works, the way money doesn't exist, this stuff we call credit. You can look at the way governments are manipulated. You can look at engineered wars. You can look at engineered terrorist events like 9/11. And in and of themselves, they're dots, and take an enormous amount of research to get to the bottom of it, just a single dot. Then you have people talking about UFOs. You have people talking about the pharmaceutical conspiracy with the vaccines and the poisonous potions that are supposed to heal us. And you look at all these things. You look at the nature of reality itself. What is reality? These are all dots which can be extraordinarily interesting. I mean, the nature of reality is my passion, really. But it's only when you connect them that you can see how the pattern fits, what the picture is. Because even at the level of banking scams, political scams, engineered wars, pharmaceutical conspiracies, you're still at the play out level of this. You're not at the origin of it. You see, when you are someone, and there are so many people in the world like this, that is appalled at injustice, that is appalled at the imbalance of the way the wealth and resources of the world are shared out. When you see people paid starvation wages to make famous products in the poorest countries in the world, then you go to a certain level of realizing that there's injustice in the world. But if you stay behind that line that sees how it fits together, or at least some of it, you're still looking from the perspective of greedy corporations wanting more wealth and more power, greedy banks and governments that help the greedy banks and the greedy corporations. The big line to cross is when you realize that the greedy banks, the greedy corporations, the governments that help them, the intelligence agencies, those that control the military, the pharmaceutical cartel, the oil cartel, the biotech cartel, are actually controlled by the same network of families. Then you move into a completely different perspective of the world that you're looking at, because you realize that the injustice, the unfairness of the way things are shared out is not because of some human nature. It's because it is cold and calculated to happen. And when you realize that those manipulating Spain are the same ultimately as those manipulating the Netherlands or Britain or the United States or South Africa, then a whole new picture starts to appear of why the world is as it is. It is as it is because it has been manipulated to be like that. And what I'm finding, I've just been on an incredible few weeks speaking in New York and near San Francisco and Lisbon and Barcelona, before that the Czech Republic. And what I'm seeing is that more and more, this group of people, of which there are legion, who can see the injustice, can see the unfairness and are appalled by it, they're now just starting, more and more of them, to cross that line and see that it's actually all coordinated to be like that. And that's a massive step, because once that mentality or that perception crosses that line, you're going with enormous amounts of people worldwide who are going to see what they need to see to understand why what they are appalled at is systematically imposed upon us.
Yeah, they're gonna wake up, the people.
Well, again, you know, when you're talking about connecting the dots, fundamental to that, this is why the first 2.5 hours of my presentations are always about the nature of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Because once we understand at least the themes of it, then the world that we daily experience and why it is structured as it is becomes infinitely more understandable. Because, like I say, you know, the 5 sense level of this, the banking scams, political scams, engineered terrorist events and wars, they're the play-out level. If you like, they're the movie screen. Where, as you go deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole, not least in terms of the nature of reality itself, then you go closer and closer to the projector from which it's all coming. And that's where you're going to change it, not here. Try changing a movie once it's hit the screen. Forget it. You've got to go to the back of the theatre and change the reel. That's why we have to go deeper and deeper into this. And I've said this so many times over the years. The world is not just a little bit not like we thought it was. The world is nothing like we thought it was. And still, to a very, very large extent, think it is. And so, when you start looking at the nature of reality, the nature of consciousness, and the difference I make, okay, it's only words, but it's the definition that I use. The difference between consciousness, which I use as the word to describe the infinite awareness that we are, always will be, and mind-body, which is the vehicle through which that infinite awareness experiences this reality. If you take this mind-body to be the computer on the desk that takes you onto the internet, because we say I'm going on the internet, but we don't go on the internet, the computer does. We observe the internet through the computer. And imagine what would happen if we all started believing we were the computer. There'd be chaos and tremendous limitation of perception, because we will be limited by what the programmed computer is programmed to perceive it symbolically. So when I'm using these terms, mind, body and consciousness, you might think of it as mind, body as the computer on the desk, and consciousness is the person sitting looking at the computer. And if the computer takes over perception, so suddenly the guy with the mouse and the keyboard is having no effect on the computer, then, like I say, you're going deeply, deeply into a sense of limitation. And the foundation of this conspiracy, from which everything else comes, is to lock and manipulate and close down human awareness to the point where the 5 senses, the mind-body level of perception, absolutely dominates people's perception of reality. And once you get pulled into that level of who you are, I am my body, I am my name, I am my job. No, they're your experiences. They're the experiences your infinite awareness is having. They're not who you are. And like I say, the foundation is to entrap us in believing that our experience is who we are, and that the 5 senses are the arbiter of awareness and perception. Because once we start perceiving the world from that level alone, or overwhelmingly dominated by that level, we're immediately into a world of little me, I can't, limitation, everything seems, almost everything seems impossible. And so when you get into that mode, and the education system, parents and peer pressure who've been through the same system, then pass that on, not through malevolence, but through they think that's how it is to their children. The media are underpinning that, because the media just take whatever is the norm in society as its point of reference from which it reports the world and says what's sane and insane. When you drop into that mode, you basically drop into, I symbolize it as a bubble or an eggshell, and you are accessing a fraction of your infinite potential. A fraction, infinitesimal fraction. And because from that perspective you're not getting your point of observing the world, your point of filtering information from higher levels of your awareness, because you've shut down from that, then you're looking through the eyes and the ears for information to get a fix on you, who you are, and the world and events that you are experiencing. And who controls that? Mm-hmm. These families who control the media, education system, etc. So that the whole foundation of the conspiracy is to put people in a sense of false identity. You are your name, you are your job, you are your background, you are your experience. And then to disconnect people from higher levels of their awareness and an influence from that. And once you've isolated them in a tiny, tiny level of awareness I call mind-body, then you program that level of awareness with information to see the world as you see fit. So this is why when you, in your question, talked about people waking up, that's what they do. They wake up, in effect, from a hypnotic trance that they've been put into. And they're waking up out of the bubble, out of a domination of mind-body perception, into higher levels of awareness, into higher levels of self, true self. And at that point, they go, but I can see it now. It's so obvious. Why couldn't I see it before? Because you were in mind-body before. That was your filter of your perception of the world and self. Now the filter has moved out. Your point of observation, your point of attention has gone to a much higher level of awareness. And thus, you can now see the dots. Before, you were seeing the dot, individual dots. That's what mind does. Once you come out of mind, or open mind, you don't kind of dismiss it, because it's part of the way we interact with this reality, but you open your mind to other levels of perception, and suddenly from that level you can see the dots connecting, and it's so obvious once you open your mind. So this process is happening, and I can tell you from experience. I've been to 54 countries now talking about this and researching this, and I've been doing it for 20 years, and I tell you, something big time has shifted in the last few months. Big time has shifted. It's like this. There's an awakening, and then every now and again there's a shift, a big leap, and we go on again. That's happening now, and the next few years are going to be amazing for two basic reasons. One, this awakening, and two, the desperation of the control system to overcome the awakening, and that's why we're seeing more and more control, more and more imposition, this gathering panic, where they're not even bothering anymore to even come up with even a fractionally credible reason for why they're imposing more and more. You know, you get a guy flies out of Amsterdam, wasn't it, without a passport, sets his underpants on fire over Detroit, was it, over America, with a device that was so brilliant, all it did was burn his bum, and then as a result of that, they suddenly unleash these full-body radiation scanners, which, as some experts have pointed out, would not have picked up the device he had in his underpants anyway. And it's like you had the situation with the packages on the cargo planes out of the Yemen. We're targeting Yemen. Yemen begins with Y. Yemen. We're targeting it. Right? And then suddenly you have these cargo planes. They started out in the Yemen, which apparently they don't seem to have done. And I love that situation where during this panic, first of all, at the East Midlands Airport in Britain, bomb experts looked at this package, or this device, apparent device or supposed device, for 6 hours, and decided it wasn't a problem. Really, it wasn't a device. And then Obama makes a speech in America saying it was a device, and suddenly, after 6 hours, we must have missed it. Yes, it was a device. This, I mean, please. But the thing that made me shriek really was I was watching this unfold. I was in Lisbon, I think. Yeah, Lisbon. I was watching this unfold on the television, on CNN and stuff, and suddenly they announce that there's a cargo plane. That's, a passenger plane, not a cargo plane, a passenger plane, Emirates plane, that's being escorted into New York Airport by 2 military aircraft because there could be a package on it that started in the Yemen, and I'm thinking, what are the military planes going to do? Say it was a device, because it wasn't, but say it was, what are they going to do by escorting it in, you know? So I said at the time, you know, this is your captain speaking. If you hear a bang, please assemble next to the hole in the side of the plane, and in an orderly fashion jump onto the military jet alongside the aircraft. You know, thank you for flying Emirates Airlines. We know you have a choice. I mean, it's like, please. So the excuses to introduce this stuff are getting more and more ludicrous because there is a panic to push this on as fast as possible, because the awakening is starting to very, very quickly now, different levels of the awakening, but it's starting to impact upon events. And so the next few years are going to be seriously challenging, and because they're going to just throw everything, but they're going to be seriously extraordinary too, in the sense that human consciousness is an awakening more and more to its true perception of self, rather than the one that's been imposed and manipulated, not just on our generations, but for thousands of years.
Yeah, so we have to see the whole picture.
Yeah,
all dots together. You have to see the whole picture.
Yes, and to see the whole picture, we need to open the mind to a greater perception of possibility and reality than people generally have. If you want to keep people in a box, one of the best ways to do it is to limit their sense of what is possible. Mm-hmm. And you do this by simply, in the public arena, suppressing the information and knowledge about what is actually possible, what is actually the reality we're experiencing. And it's an obvious thing, but so many times we miss the obvious. If you suppress information about what is possible, you suppress humanity's perception of what is possible. And therefore, when people like me come along and say, this is happening and this is happening outside of that suppressed sense of possibility, then people just laugh at the truth. That's not possible, that's ridiculous, that can't be done. No. Humans in the public arena can't do it. Even humans outside the public arena in the secret projects can't do all of it. But there are entities and races outside of our human world, shall we say, that absolutely bloody well can do it, and they're doing it every day. So we need to open our minds and not let preconceived idea, programmed perception and belief about possibility to allow us to dismiss something by reflex action without actually looking at it in its true sense. You see, when people started saying that the Earth wasn't flat, but it was a sphere, actually it's an information field if you go deeper and deeper, but it was a sphere. People said, some people said, that's impossible because people on the bottom would fall off. Mm-hmm. Now, if you suppress information, or you are in ignorance of information, then you can dismiss something as impossible when it's not impossible at all. It's perfectly logical if you are in receipt of the information necessary to see that it's logical and possible. So once you, for instance, introduce the law of gravity to this the Earth is a sphere equation, then what appears without that knowledge to be impossible and ridiculous and crazy suddenly becomes perfectly logical. And in so many areas, it's why I talk for so long when I do my day events like in Amsterdam. It's because there's so many dots, first of all to explain it in terms of dots, but then to connect them. Connecting the dots is the most important thing, because then you start to see that the apparently impossible is perfectly logical. For instance, it would take a long time, talking now, but it's why my events, like I say here, go on for hours. But in simple terms, that table cannot be solid because scientists tell us it's made of atoms, and atoms have no solidity. And that's impossible, mate. You got to be solid, or you can't have things that aren't solid making up a solid world, and all these things go around. It's like bewildering. But when you realise the nature of reality, and it's all about decoding information, very much like the computer connects into the wireless internet and brings a whole collective reality onto your screen. And if you go to the same website in South Africa, the Netherlands, London, anywhere, you will see the same reality, no matter where you are, because it's a collective reality that the computer's decoding. Once you realise that we are decoding reality through this, what I call body computer, then you realise that the illusion of solidity comes from the decoding process, and that what we call atoms are merely part of that decoding process. So suddenly, when you get deeper into this, there is no paradox between something that has no solidity making up a solid world, because the world ain't solid. When you take a computer game on the computer, or you go to an internet and you watch a video or whatever, there seems to be time and space. There seems to be distance. There seems to be a three-dimensional reality in front of you. And yet that is being generated from information. You put a disk in the computer, a software disk, look at it. I mean, it's just like a silver disk. There seems to be anything on it. But you put it in the tower or whatever, and that information is decoded into apparent time and space on the screen. Well, that's what we're doing. And atoms, what we call atoms, are merely part of that decoding process. But again, when is that ever discussed in the public arena? Mm-hmm. Never is. Mm-hmm. And so people are denied these wider understandings of reality, and without them they can't fully understand, or even nearly often understand, why the world is therefore structured as it is, and why these apparent scientific paradoxes and bewilderments are actually perfectly easily explainable.
And how long is it happens? It's not 1 year, it's 1 million years, or?
It goes back as we perceive time, although again, time's an illusion. Yeah. Again, that can be explained very simply. But in our perception of time, it goes back tens of thousands of years, probably hundreds of thousands of years possibly, that we have been in this bewildered, suppressed state, because it's clear when you look at the common themes, the extraordinary common themes of ancient legends and accounts from all different ancient cultures around the world, that there was a time when this earth, this reality, was very, very different, almost unimaginably different from what we have today. It was a time when humans had massive expansion of consciousness compared with today. They were capable of incredible feats. they lived vastly long lives. You know, when you see these ancient accounts about people living extraordinarily long lives, and people today go, that's not possible, that's ridiculous. But actually it was, because it was a different energetic environment, a different environment in terms of consciousness, and people had this awareness of the connection of everything. And when I watched the Avatar movie, I'm not saying this is what Cameron was depicting, I'm saying this is what it meant to me, where the blue people with the lion noses were in complete harmony with their environment, the animal kingdom, the natural world. That very much corresponds to the kind of world that these ancient accounts talk about, what some call the Golden Age. And then, and I go into this in my latest book, You Must Get Off Your Knees, to a very large extent, great detail. There was what I call the schism. Something intervened, and a vast change took place. And this is what, not just the Bible, but ancient accounts around the world often describe as the fall of man, or the fall of humans. It was a fall into ignorance from what we were like before, and that fall into ignorance was not by natural disaster or natural change. It was caused by intervention by a non-human race. And the more that the years have passed, the more that I've understood the deeper levels, and there's so much more to know, the deeper levels of reality and how reality works, the more blatantly obvious it's become to me in terms of how they do it, how they did it, how they brought about that massive, quote, fall from expanded consciousness into a state of manufactured ignorance. The fall of man, the fall of humans, did happen, and I talk about it in my talks about how it happened. And in so many ways, I would suggest it relates to a very large extent to the moon and what it really is, and the fact that the moon has not been here anything like as long as
that's about your book.
It to be, yeah.
It's about your book. It's more, you can make a translation of it and transmission to your book.
Yeah.
Get off your knees and the lion sleeps no more.
Yeah.
You talk about the moon matrix.
That's right.
Yeah. You say it is a spaceship, or it's hollow?
Well, I'm saying it is one of two things. It's either a hollowed out planetoid, and interestingly, there's more and more speculation that the moon of Mars, Phobos, is actually some kind of either hollowed out or manufactured craft rather than what it seems to be. The moon is either something like that, or it's totally created, totally manufactured. And this takes us back to what I said earlier. To understand what is happening, we have to disconnect ourselves from preconceived idea of possibility. Because, hey, you can't make that. Well, no, you can't make that. The people that made it can make that. And what happened in terms of the moon was exactly the same sequence that we talked about right at the start. In that I sat down at my computer one day when I was writing this latest book, and I felt the energy in the room change, which is always a sign for me that something's going on in terms of information, because it's happened so often. And then I got this very clear, strong thought go through my mind. Again, something I've experienced many times. And it just said, the moon's not real as you think it is. The moon's not what you think it is. And from that initial kind of thought, I went onto the internet, put a few relevant words into Google, and up came a book called Who Built the Moon, which I didn't know about at the time. And I sent for that. I read it in like 24 hours or so. And it was talking about the fact the moon couldn't be real for many and various reasons. Real in terms of a naturally occurring heavenly body. And what's amazing when you get into this whole area of research is so many things that are considered and even taught as scientific fact turn out to be nothing more than someone's bloody theory, which through repetition has been accepted to be how it is. And they don't, the truth is they don't know where the moon came from or how it was formed. And it's interesting because when you're born into the world, you tend to accept the way the world is as the way the world is. So you're born into the world and the moon comes up. And the moon comes up time after time after time after time. And it goes through its sequence of full moon down to whatever, the sequence, down to the sequence where we have the new moon and all the rest of it. And you kind of accept it because it's there. But when you start asking questions about it, it's like, I never knew that. First of all, they have no idea where it came from. The theory that they'll quote to you, if you say to mainstream science, how was the moon formed? They'll say, well, a Mars-type planet crashed into the Earth in its kind of early formation, and a great chunk came off and became the moon. And then when the physics of that didn't work out, that was called the whack theory, or the big whack theory. And then when the physics of that didn't work out, they came up with the double whack theory, which is that the Mars-type planet hit the Earth, went away, and then came back and hit it again. And the truth is, they haven't got a clue how the moon was formed. As one scientist said, the only thing you can say about the moon is it must be observational error, because it shouldn't be there. It's far, far too big to be a satellite of a planet the size of the Earth. It's bigger than Pluto, you know? And as you know, one scientist speculated that the Earth, with its magnetic field, might not have any satellites at all. But if it did, it should be a very small satellite, he postulated, maybe 30 miles around. This moon is 2,100 odd miles around. And so it shouldn't be there. And so if you want to know what's happening, you look at these anomalies and you go, okay, there's something to follow up here. There's something to play out, to see what this moon's all about. But what most people do, because of their preconceived idea and their manipulated sense of possibility, is they won't do that. They'll dismiss it. Ah, the moon, don't be stupid, you're mad. Reptiles, now the moon's not real, you're not right in the head, mate. But what I am is someone that wants to know what's going on, wants to know how things are so we can do something about it. And if people want to call me crazy or dismiss me, well, they have a right to do that. Couldn't care less, mate, you know, couldn't care less. It's not even water off a duck's back anymore, you know. But yeah, okay, I'm crazy, all right. I'm pleased for you. But what I'm interested in is what's happening, and I will go on pursuing what I believe I need to understand, no matter what people say to me, you know. You don't want to believe the moon's not what you think it is? Fine. You believe what they tell you it is. I don't have a problem with that. But don't tell me what to think, and don't tell me what to do, because I won't have it. And that's the only way you're going to actually find out what's happening in the world, when you're prepared to go to places where you know you're going to get ridiculed, you know you're going to get dismissed, but they're places you need to go if you're going to take the next step down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, we have to close this interview because we are on time.
Okay.
And thank you very much for the listeners of the radio. If you want to know more, come and read your book, because there's a lot of information, 700 pages, so people go and listen and read the book or going to the event, Thank you for your time. Thank you
It's been a
to the
pleasure.
events.
Thank you very much. Nice to
And,
meet you.
Success with the events.
Thank you.